So this is another edition of the Heel to the Face podcast. I'm Jared.
I'm Brandon.
And this week we talk the dark side of the ring. And most importantly, folks, never meet your heroes. We're going to talk the dark side of the ring and much more that has come out from that, as well as try to preview Extreme Rules as the Heel to the Face podcast starts right now.
Fans celebrate with me from Rome to Rochester.
Bad luck seems to be my middle name. They might as well tag me up with my buddies from Syracuse.
So this is another edition of the Heel to the Face podcast. I'm Jared, joined with Brandon as always, and the show is on Twitter at Heel to the Face. We're coming off the first episode of the new season of Dark Side of the Ring, heading into Extreme Rules. We are taping this a little early this week, so we haven't already seen AEW's Grand Slam Dynamite, as that happens tonight. So we haven't yet saw that, but we are going to probably preview that one a little bit as well. Heading into next week, in which locally there's a big 2CW show in which some bad news came down for that. Some bad news is kind of coming down. The longer you drag something out, the more people are going to get hurt and not be able to make the shows. And the latest effects, not just those 2CW, obviously that's a local thing, but on the grander scheme, Sami Callihan, who is currently the 2CW champion, broke his ankle this past weekend in his Impact Wrestling tapings. He is out of action until 2022. For those who don't know local wrestling, you know him through obviously the fact that he just recently took on Kenny Omega with the Impact Championship on the line. He's a big name person who, you know, I'm not going to say he was going to jump to AEW or do any of that stuff, but if you follow any of the AEW Impact those kind of collisions that they've been doing, he's been integral in that. Obviously, Impact's going to have Bound for Glory coming up, their big event in which they hope to have the integral New Japan, AEW, and Impact all together. And he's going to miss out on that, which would have been a big payday for him, especially there.
And they were supposed to have a storyline with him and Moxley as a team again. So they were looking to do something there with, I believe, Eddie Edwards, if I'm not mistaken. So that's obviously scrapped until next year. So obviously we hope all the best, hopefully for a smooth healing process, and hopefully we'll see him back in the ring. I haven't heard the exact extent, but hopefully by, I would say, summertime.
Right now we're in September, so just 2022. Have no idea if it's a full year or if it's just going to be up until maybe January, February. We'll find out as time goes on, but we got to keep to the pertinent matters, and that's a new season of Dark Side of the Ring, and, well, obviously everybody's been talking about it, and it's crazy that everyone's been talking about it for this reason alone. I'll start with this. The one negative about the newest season of Dark Side of the Ring is, I guess just like anything, the most important, crazy things that are worth talking about are brought up on the earlier seasons, meaning as soon as we have to keep dragging this show out as the popularity of the show continues, the stories are going to get less salacious. The stories are going to get less controversy and less, exciting, just for the fact that they had no plan to even have these further seasons.
Yeah.
It's just like any talk show. Obviously, if you're Conan O'Brien or you're Jay Leno or you're one of these guys, you're starting a new talk show, your first guests are probably going to be your biggest ones you've been waiting, because you plan 6 months, 7 months, maybe even a year to get the show, and that's what you plan. And you plan your show against essentially around these episodes. So the first season, we saw the Owen Hart situations, the steroid scandals, the Macho Man stuff, all the big stuff that everyone's been talking about for years and years and years and always wanted to know the backstory. Those are the things he talked about. Now we're kind of dragging it out a little bit. We're trying to find things that essentially weren't controversial enough or weren't a big enough deal to make it into the first 3 seasons.
Yeah.
And I'll stick by saying this past week's Dark Side of the Ring was one of those stories. Now, what came out from one of those stories being the plane ride from hell, essentially being on its surface, not the most wild, crazy wrestling story to ever exist. I mean, it's guys on a plane ride acting ridiculous.
Yep.
And, and if you were to take Ric Flair out of the equation and you were to take Tommy Dreamer essentially out of the equation of talking about it, it really wouldn't have been that crazy of a Dark Side of the Ring. If Ric Flair wasn't on that flight and Tommy Dreamer wasn't talking about that flight, I mean, that would have just been WWE already in the past glamorized this flight on a Storytime episode where they talked about how wild and crazy the wrestlers can be and how they all got in a big fight.
And I believe that got pulled, if I'm not
That
mistaken.
got pulled from the network and Peacock and all those things, because what was one time a cartoonish ribbing, something the wrestlers talk about very joyously with smiles on their faces, of just a plane ride that just went kind of crazy because the wrestlers had a little too much to drink and got a little, macho and wild, turned into something much more because of the allegations of Ric Flair. Now, we'll start with the allegations of Ric Flair. And I
Yeah.
guess what we'll start with there is the fact of how do you handle something in this modern day in which we're talking about people who are doing things that aren't completely out of the left field of our imaginations. We'll start with like the Ric Flairs, the Marilyn Mansons. Obviously, they're doing things that are crazy, but they're not crazy into the extent of that's their gimmick. That's who they are. That's who we always thought they were to be.
Well, let me stop you there real quick. Let me ask you this. After watching that show, do you think Ric Flair was trying to force himself on that lady, that female? I honestly I don't know. I mean, Ric Flair is one of those,
and that's the thing.
There's a lot of gray area. That's and now Tommy Dreamer speaks his mind and speaks the truth on these things and kept it real 100%. And now he's suspended indefinitely. He's not on a busted open radio now. And to me, like, now you can't speak your mind these days without repercussions. He was just stating his opinion on things, and people took it the wrong way. To me, the whole Tommy Dreamer thing's a little ridiculous.
The Tommy Dreamer thing, in my eyes, is a little blown up, especially if he comes out and he kind of clarifies what he was saying. He kind of came out and he did apologize and say he didn't mean to say it. It didn't.
He worded it a little.
Yes.
He could have worded it better. Exactly.
Yes, he could have worded it better, and more importantly, he came out and he kind of reworded it and said that it wasn't exactly what he meant. He wasn't trying to victim shame.
No, he definitely that wasn't the objective. No.
So I think with Tommy Dreamer, I think some of this stuff will blow over, but obviously the Ric Flair thing, this isn't about wording it wrong. This isn't about saying it wrong or doing something in which might be misconstrued as wrong. It's essentially coming out as as assault. Essentially coming out as sexual assault on somebody.
Yeah, that's some serious allegations.
That's some serious allegations. And the thing is, and why I mentioned this is because how do you handle this? Because this isn't sexual allegations coming out against somebody like The Undertaker or The Rock or somebody whom we'd say, wow, this is out of left field. We had no idea. This is coming out of somebody whom glamorized this lifestyle. This is like saying that, Tony Stewart or Jeff Gordon were pulled over for driving too fast in their personal cars. That's their gimmick. They're NASCAR drivers.
Yeah, they drive fast.
So for Ric Flair to literally that's his career. That's his gimmick. He glamorizes womanizing. He glamorizes being somebody who can have any woman he wants, anytime he wants. He's had dozens of wives, and the reason he's had dozens of wives is because in between the wives, he's been on the road, wheeling and dealing, jet flying,
kiss stealing,
and here he is stealing kisses, essentially. And now
allegedly.
It's like, how do we approach this? Because again, I'm not saying it happened or it didn't happen, but we
weren't there. We weren't there. So
telling me that a rapper who writes songs about shooting off guns got arrested for shooting off a gun, it's hard to be like, yeah, I mean, we kind of knew that. How do we treat this? How do we approach it? Are we shocked? Are we upset?
So what are your thoughts on RVD's part of the situation too? Ric Flair's not too happy with RVD's, the way he spoke about him. So that was another interesting dynamic. I don't know if he did it, if he didn't. We weren't there. So it's like, there's his word, her word, and then the real word, so to speak. So it's a very dark situation.
I would say if I were to venture, and again, I wasn't on the flight, most of us weren't, but if I was to venture, I would say it's probably somewhere in between, and it's probably somewhere in which Ric Flair, because what was accounted for, what was glamorized, is that Ric Flair did pretty much all of that. Meaning Ric Flair, according to WWE Storytime, walked around a plane in which had females on it and males. I mean, females from a wrestling perspective and the stewardess in his robe without anything on underneath it.
Yeah, he was. Yeah,
I mean, that's not even disputed.
Yeah, I mean, and they also, there's multiple accounts of him doing what's called a helicopter. Didn't really know what that was until that was mentioned. I was like, as soon as I figured out that, I was like, oh, that's what a helicopter is. Okay.
So it's just hard to take the side of Ric Flair
or the victim. You don't know. You don't know which side to go on. You're kind of in the middle because you want to be innocent until proven guilty, but you also don't want to discredit what this female is saying. So you're really walking a tightrope.
And again, it's sorry to Ric Flair, but he put himself in this, regardless of the outcome, regardless if he did it. Again, it's the same as any sort of crime. When there's a bank robbery, and I know there's a bank robbery going on, and I think it'd be cool to see it up close, and I decide to drive to the bank and go inside to get a closer look, and I get caught for it, I kind of put myself in that situation.
Yep.
He puts himself in that situation by clearly saying, yeah, I took off my clothes on a plane, and I was swinging my genitals around on a plane in which had females around. I mean, you put yourself in that. That's not a good situation to put yourself in.
The situation just wasn't good at all. It was. I mean, I was when a lot of those details came out, I'm like, whoa. I mean, I hate to say this, like you said, it doesn't surprise me because it's Ric Flair. Ric Flair is just known to be, he's just crazy in a lot of ways. He's always looking for a good time. So, I mean, these things do not, they don't surprise me.
Now, I want to look this up here because I want to get this right.
I was going to ask
because we're going to talk
this.
we just talked about somebody, Ric Flair, and it's something that he kind of, is known for.
Yep.
But when we talk about, don't meet your heroes, because sometimes it happens in the perspective of, this is kind of shocking. This was out of nowhere. So Rene Dupree came out on a podcast recently and kind of talked about some bullying that happened, and it involved The Undertaker. I'm trying to get it in front of me because there was a whole bunch of stuff, but here's the quote. They took my $500 shoes and my $1,000 suit and ruined it in the shower because I didn't go out drinking with the boys at the bar the night before, and that's because nobody invited me. It's just materialistic stuff that you can replace that doesn't bother me. But what really bothered me is that when we were in Italy the next night, they took my French flag, my heritage, and they shoved it in a toilet, and they pissed all over it and took a dump on it as well. And I don't know what kind of bullshit world you live in, but in my world, that's racial discrimination, he says. And it was really hurtful, he says. And what I did was I went to Arn Anderson, who then said the same thing we heard on Dark Side of the Ring. This seems to be the phrase of the week.
Don't sell it.
That's the phrase of the week.
Yeah.
Going back to Terry Reynolds on the plane.
Yes.
That seems to be the new phrase of the week. Don't sell it.
Yeah, don't sell it. That's a common phrase now. I don't know what it is.
So back, obviously, we've been well aware, and this is also another well-documented thing, is somebody who seems to get to the bottom of things and seems to be the captain of the locker room has always been The Undertaker. So
For sure.
Rene Dupree goes to The Undertaker to kind of find out what's going on, to see if he can get to the bottom of it. And he says, what do you do when someone does this to you? That's what he said to The Undertaker. And The Undertaker said, well, you find out who does it. And, he found out that it was The Undertaker who was the mastermind behind this.
Does this surprise you, by the way?
I mean, this surprises me a little bit because, again, this is a later on. This is an Undertaker in the 90s. This is Undertaker in the 2000s. And it surprises me a little bit because I would think The Undertaker would be above this. I think The Undertaker would be above this now because, unfortunately, even for, we say kids when they mature into their 20s, but sometimes 20-year-olds need to mature into their 40s as well. And 40-year-olds need to mature into their 50s. So I would think now The Undertaker would be a little more mature, but it kind of toes the line. Yes, Undertaker has that hardened edge gimmick. But at the same time, I would just think that The Undertaker would be above this a little bit. I'm a little disappointed.
Yeah, when I saw the news that came out from this the story with Rene Dupree, I was very surprised because by all accounts, I mean, Undertaker has been a well-respected leader in the locker room. So, if these things are true, I mean, there were a lot of detail. So I don't know if Rene would be making this up just to make himself, famous or getting his 15 minutes of fame in the 2020s. But it was really detailed. So, like, when you have that much detail, you either come up with a really good story or it's just the facts. And, it seems like it's pretty factual to me. I don't know about you. But
and I guess my thing is if I heard something in which there was, like, disrespect on his end or he did something and then The Undertaker kind of retaliated, I'd understand that. But from the account, and I don't know The Undertaker's account, but from the account, is that all he did was not want to go out drinking with the guys? Maybe he wanted to get some rest. He's a wrestler. He's trying to do his job. Some of us, we got to do our job for a living.
So let me ask you
that
this.
doesn't,
what would you do to a guy like
retaliate.
Daniel Bryan, who's a straight edge? You know what I mean? Like, Daniel Bryan doesn't drink.
Or CM Punk.
Punk, yeah, another straight edge. Like that's what they do. They choose not to live that lifestyle. Like in Rene Dupree's situation,
I think
he's just trying to break into the business.
And that's why I don't think Undertaker would do that nowadays, because I think the business in general, I think the business in general nowadays is way different. And that's why it's kind of disappointing because I thought it was at the point where it had been different then too. I thought it was still in the post 90s, post 80s.
I would say this.
But apparently we had to wait till CM Punk got there.
I would say the mid 2000s is where the things really started to change. I would say mid to late 2000s because I was listening to Bobby Lashley on the Broken Skull Sessions not too long ago, and he even said from when he left in like 2008, I think it was, to now, the locker room's completely different. It's, guys are playing video games, he said, and it's just that the politicking's it's a lot different. So I think the late 2000s going into like the 2010s, I would think right around, where the Miz did his thing as the champion at WrestleMania and main evented. That's probably where things really changed because I think there was just a culture change. I think a lot of the old guard was starting to leave. You got some new guards in. And a lot of these guys reportedly they bring their video games with them.
I wonder if it had anything to do with John Cena as well, because John Cena, being the face of the company and being the champion, he's not a Stone Cold Steve Austin kind of guy. He's not a rough and rugged. He is kind of a prima donna a little bit, especially later on.
In a way,
he started traveling on his own. He kind of got the bus, and we've learned from Total Divas, he's a very clean cut. Likes to kind of stick to himself kind of guy. He's not one of the guys who's in the back playing games on people or playing ribs.
No, he just likes to do his job, punch in and punch out, and that's
Wears his nice clothes and takes off, wants to go out to dinner, doesn't want to hit up some dive bar. Maybe that's early John Cena, but...
it was definitely OVW, early WWE Cena for sure.
But now, John Cena as champion, you can definitely tell he's kind of somebody who doesn't live the Stone Cold lifestyle, who doesn't live the rough road. He's not in a car. I've never heard any stories of him in a car with 5 guys, slumming it for a motel room.
No, he had the luxuries when he was on the road, just like the Big Show has. Yeah, but the Big Show had his own personal RV.
So I imagine if when John Cena was the face of the company, over the Shawn Michaels and the Bret Harts of the world, is when that kind of stuff started to turn. Because if you're the face, you kind of lead the locker room, and if this is how you're leading it, then maybe some of the other guys are leading it like that as well. And and again, it doesn't hurt that the Chris Benoits and the Eddie Guerreros and the kind of negative stuff that WWE had in that perspective might have shifted some of these guys in a way that's like, I don't want to go that route.
Exactly.
Because they lived that route, and how they ended up was fatal. So maybe some people saw some of those hard 90s, 80s style wrestler lifestyles and decided to change it up because realized that, you still have to work those amount of nights. Vince is going to make you work those amount of nights.
Oh, 100%.
So if you want to take the pain pills and work those kind of nights, or you want to start to see if you can live more organically and have a better diet and just be healthier and live those kind of nights, that's your choice. But as we've seen, if you live the pain pill way, it doesn't end up good.
No, and I think the nice thing, too, that people are starting to realize, like a lot of people play video games it helps with their anxiety. Mm-hmm. So instead of, it gets their mind off of things. Instead of popping pills or doing destructive things to yourselves or others, playing video games, you're just kind of blocking out the world and you're just playing your games. That's why video games and wrestling, they're like one of the same now. Like that culture is really integrated.
It just seems like the modern wrestlers in WWE especially are not the Jake Snake Roberts of the world.
No, 100%. Nope.
Which is probably good for the longevity of them. And speaking of longevity, I don't know if you saw this week, but Daniel Bryan actually posted to the Players Tribune.
I did see that.
A nice thank you to WWE. And you kind of wonder, like, why can't everybody just be like Daniel Bryan?
Yeah, he's just a class act all the way around. He just does things the right way. And from all accounts, I didn't read the whole thing. I didn't have a chance to read it. I kind of did the Cliff Notes version of it. And I mean, it was a great piece. I mean, he does everything with such class. Mm-hmm. And speaking of WWE, I have to, speaking of WWE, there's his opponent coming up here very, very soon as we're recording. Kenny Omega came out and said 2 things in particular. In his opinion, 90% of WWE's roster wants to be in AEW. And Kenny Omega also said that there's one match that he wants, of superstars that are not in AEW, that are in WWE, he wants Roman Reigns.
Well, I don't think he's going to get Roman Reigns anytime soon.
No, I don't think. Here's the thing: that 90% does not apply to folks like Brock Lesnar, Becky Lynch, Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns. Those folks I don't see. And I don't even think Bobby Lashley would go on to WWE. I think some of those big names, I don't see them going out of. I
don't necessarily think that all these guys want to go to AEW. They want WWE to just be better.
Yeah, 100%.
They want to be in and that's the thing. And WWE has the leverage. They have the more TV time. They've got the more lucrative contracts. They've got the leverage on AEW right now, in which they could choose to make it a better work environment.
Well, here's the thing.
The only reason they don't want to be there is not because AEW is really rocking in the ratings. WWE,
here's the thing, though,
can do that anytime they want.
From all accounts, I don't know if you saw Mike Chioda's comments recently. AEW takes better care of the dang referees. WWE makes the referees, according to Mike Chioda's comments, pay their own tolls, so to speak. AEW takes care of everything. That's the difference between Vince McMahon and Tony Khan. Tony Khan legitimately cares about every single person that works for him. Whether it's the guy who's like a production assistant to Kenny Omega, everybody in between. That's the difference. I don't think Vince values everybody like Tony Khan does. That's just my opinion on it.
I mean, you have the money. You have the company, you have the structure, you're the big boss company that everyone's chasing. You can turn this around anytime you want, WWE. You can make this the company because everybody wants to be in WWE. They want to main event WrestleMania. Even the AEW people, if they could be treated like they are in AEW and WWE, they would want to be in WWE. If WWE decided to have the best wellness policies and the best work policies and gave people all this great time off, it didn't make them work as much and gave them the training they wanted and the regimens they wanted and the respect that they want.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer at that point.
Then because essentially just from a name perspective, they've got it. You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure.
So if they're going to treat them the same way that they treat people in AEW, then people would want to be in WWE. You know, people only want to be in AEW not because they always dreamed about main eventing Full Gear or, you know, wrestling in front of 20,000 on a rare occasion. They want to be in WWE because of the name, and they just wish it was better. It would stink because there's probably kids who grew up who want to play for the New York Yankees their whole life, and then they get there and they get treated like crap. And it stinks because they're like, I want to be here. This is by namesake, but I don't want this that I had no idea that comes with it. These people all grow up wanting to be in WWE.
Yeah, well,
even the AEW guys, they grew up wanting to be in WWE.
Oh, for sure. That's a
They
given.
just wish it wasn't what it was. Once they get there.
Well, a lot of the guys, you know, I mean, they've had dark matches like in WWE, like they were jobbers, and then they had a bad experience. They left a bad taste in their mouth. And they're like, all right, I'm gonna go elsewhere that's not WWE and kick some serious ass on the independents, Japan, you name it, and do it their way. Young Bucks, same thing. Kenny Omega, just to name a couple people. Like a lot of these guys they had to go other routes to make a living in the business. I memean, the Young Bucks have done that stuff too. I mean,
there's always been other routes. There's always been Ring of Honor. There's always been New Japan. There's always been these things. But I don't think until now that's been desirable. I don't think people who were in Ring of Honor were choosing that over WWE. Now we're at a point where people are choosing AEW over WWE.
I would disagree. I think there's enough talent out there that strictly will work independence instead of WWE. It's been reported out there.
Well, yes, no, that's what. Well, I think now,
but the Young Bucks did it. I mean, back when they were working with TNA, they were out. What was the name of their group? It was like New Generation Era or something like that, or Generation. I forget the name of it off the top of my head. But the Young Bucks wanted an out because they were getting paid on an appearance basis when they were in TNA. And guess what? One was having a kid. One just bought a house. Guess what? When you're not appearing, you're not making money. It's kind of hard to survive. So they wanted to work their own schedules, and they can negotiate their pay at every appearance, and they can control the income in a better aspect than what in that case was TNA at that point. So it happens. A lot of guys and gals, they just, you know what, WWE is the cream of the crop, but look what Sami Callihan's been doing. I mean, he was in NXT and he's like, "Nah, I'm good. I'm gonna go." Yeah, and he's done well. I mean, obviously he's injured, but he's had a successful career, and he's making decent money. He's making decent money. I mean, it's not like Impact's paying him nothing.
Yeah, no, and I've learned that in my own personal life, you know, too. It's not just about money. It's about the leverage of money / time. It's about mixing that stuff together.
Yeah, that's the thing. You're right. Money's great, but you only have one life to live. You gotta be able to.
It's gotta be balanced.
You gotta balance it, and you have and I know it because I have a little one. I have a family myself, and you know, for me, it's okay. I'm not working 60, 80-hour weeks anymore. I'm working 40 and change every week because I need to have that work-life balance. That's what these wrestlers a lot of them want to do, and a lot of the superstars in WWE these days, if you look at them, a lot of them are single. That's fine. If you're a bachelor, so to speak, that's fine. But if you have families, a lot of these guys have families too. So the ones that have the families, they're like, nah, I don't want to work all these nights and never see my kids.
WWE this week pulled out some super card for Monday Night Raw, where we saw the Bloodline against the Usos that is the Bloodline, Roman Reigns and the Usos against the New Day with new champion Big E, and then we saw the main event, which was Big E, Bobby Lashley, and Roman Reigns, and that was a great main event, no doubt about it. I think a lot of it was brought out. The reason we saw this kind of Super Show Raw was essentially because of the fact that a lot of the Raw roster is overseas. In England, doing some shows over there. Drew McIntyre recently in Scotland. They're in Wales. They're in all those places doing some shows.
Right
so you kind of had to mix things up. And to be honest with you, more power to the more power for the fans, because the mixing of stuff up.
Well, hold on. I gotta back you up there. Just a second. I don't know if you caught the Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss segment. From reports out there, a decent percentage of the attendants actually walked out during that segment.
But also, if you account for what Alexa Bliss said to Dave Meltzer this past week on Twitter, she says that was a lie, and that he's just doing it for clout, and he has no idea what he's talking about.
You're right. I mean, that's legitimate, because you know how I am. I'm not a Meltzer fan. I've seen it on various wrestling sites. I mean, I know it's the internet wrestling community. I bash them all the time. That's just how it goes. But I mean, there's enough people out there saying that people are leaving. So I mean, do I believe Dave Meltzer? Not really. But do I believe the people that are actually there that left? Yeah, why not? Why wouldn't you believe people that are saying, yeah, there's a bunch of us that left?
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely some negative segments for sure. I thought they delivered with the opening match and definitely with the main event. And for being a card that was created for the fact that they're sans, minus a lot of talent, I think they did a good job in making it so we're going to be minus a lot of talent, but instead we're really going to pump things up. If I went to Monday Night Raw and they're like, Drew McIntyre, this guy, they're not here, but good news, we're getting what we got, I'd have been like, that's a fair trade-off.
Yeah, I mean, overall, I thought Raw was actually decent. I thought it was a decent show this week. I actually ended up watching most of it. I didn't watch it live, but I caught up on it throughout this week thus far. So I haven't watched NXT yet. I got to watch NXT 2.0. I haven't had a chance to check that out. But I do have to. Speaking of NXT 2.0, Johnny Gargano's contract's coming up. I was reading online. December 3rd is the end of his contract. So do you think WWE re-signs Gargano, or do you think Gargano is going elsewhere?
I would say let's wait until December 3rd.
No, I'm just curious.
I don't know. I mean,
why wouldn't you have a deal done? I mean, look what happened here. You let Adam Cole walk over to the competition. Does the same thing happen to Gargano?
I think anything is possible. I definitely would not hold anything against, or not against. I would not believe WWE to do anything crazy. I mean, everything they've done. I thought they weren't going to let Adam Cole. I thought that was just something like, okay, come on, he's going to stick around. They've obviously had the view of what they've already seen happen with WWE and guys going to AEW, and they did it.
Let me ask you,
let him go.
Another superstar that I don't know when his contract's up. I mean, that's all speculative, but Keith Lee has been kind of not repackaged, but kind of rebranded in a different way. Now he's like a Bearcat now, I think.
Yeah.
I saw. Yeah. What's your take on that? That's a little interesting.
I think my take on all these guys being portrayed with like other names like Keith Lee or with Karrion Kross with his little gimmick. It's
I think it's bad. Yeah, I think it's just bad on creative. I think like Karrion Kross, why wouldn't you just leave him the way he was in NXT? He would have been over already on the main roster if you would have had him doing the exact same thing he was doing in NXT. Yeah. You have Scarlett by his side, things are good.
I mean, you can say that for everybody.
Keith Lee was fine. You didn't. The thing that ticks me off about Keith Lee, he's super talented. And like literally, he's limitless, as he likes to say. He literally has so much freaking talent. In WWE, sometimes I don't know what it is. And speaking of another talent that they have no creative for, it's Keith Lee's real life significant other, Mia Yim. Mia Yim, she's sitting on the sidelines and recently tweeted, "I'm not injured." It's like people were speculating, okay, she's not there because she's injured. She's not injured. They have nothing for her. Like, what is up with that?
I mean, it's crazy to think. I mean, maybe that's the gimmick. Maybe we're getting to let all these guys go to AEW, so then they'll have something for everybody.
You know what? I think what's going to happen is you're going to see a lot of these faces back. A draft's what? Like 2 weeks away, a week away?
Yeah, about a week and a half away, October the 1st. It's WWE right now is a very unique place.
It's to me, I enjoy AEW much more. That's where I'm at these days. Like, am I watching NXT 2.0? Yes, because I'm intrigued. I want to see what happens, and I haven't watched I haven't watched the most recent episode this week, but I watched last week. Halfway decent, but overall, WWE to me is just dropping the ball. I think AEW is just knocking everything out of the park. I am excited. I know we're recording right before the Arthur Ashe Stadium show tonight, but I am super pumped for that. I'll be watching that live.
Yeah, it's too bad I can't get this out here early enough, but don't pay, I think it's like $25 to park over at Citi Field and at the stadium. Roosevelt Avenue, that's a good spot. There's tons of street parking right there. Get it for free.
If anybody knows where to get free parking, this guy.
And there's some good pizza joints because it's right next to Citi Field. So I've gone to Citi Field enough. They literally are right next to each other. And I park always right off Roosevelt Avenue when I go to Citi Field. I don't pay that like $25, $35 that they charge.
What do you usually pay?
I pay nothing.
So it's free on free
free on the streets. Just got to follow the signs. Follow the directions of the signs. It's free on the streets, especially after like 6 o'clock.
Oh, there you go. So you're good then.
Yeah.
He's a pro. He's a pro, folks. He's a pro.
And then you can walk, stop and get a slice of pizza. Maybe hit up one of the little bodegas and get a drink on the way. Walk to Arthur Ashe Stadium.
Life's good.
And it's right under the overpass. So if it's raining or something, you don't get wet because it's the highway's right above you. Roosevelt Avenue is kind of the divider between Arthur Ashe Stadium and Citi Field. And then it's the train, actually, I'm thinking of. The train that goes right above you. So you're underneath that the whole time.
Yeah, so you're not getting drenched. Like you would today in upstate New York here because it's been a rainy day today.
But this weekend, it seems like it was taking forever. But now that it's here, it seems like, wow, it's already here. And that's Extreme Rules.
Yes.
This Sunday from the Nationwide Arena in Columbus, Ohio. I know that because I have crazy friends who are like, because we haven't had crowds in so long, they want to go to literally everything. And sometimes you got to rein them back and you got to be like, listen.
Speaking of the guy that goes to all the shows.
Exactly. I have to rein and be like, listen, we went to Mania. Went to SummerSlam.
Folks, if you don't know Jared by now, you've been listening to this show for long enough. Jared would go to a wrestling show 7 days a week, 365. That's if
it was within a 3-hour drive, I'd be at Extreme Rules. But sometimes you got to reserve some of those sick days at work for actual sick time, and to go to Columbus, Ohio.
Actual sick time, nice.
So the Columbus, the drive from here to Columbus, Ohio, is just a little bit. I mean, again, if this was a SummerSlam and it was a 3-day weekend, it might be a little bit different, but not
doing it. Not doing it this time around.
I think it's to the point that we haven't had wrestling in so long. So the fact that people are able to go to, everyone wants to go to everything. All of a sudden now it'll be the same thing. Even that house show in Albany that was about a week ago seemed appealing because it's like, we haven't been to, I've gone to a few WWE shows myself, but we haven't just had so many house shows coming through. And as soon as they start to come through again, you're not going to be driving to every Extreme Rules.
No.
I
mean, looking at the card, it's not worth driving to Columbus for. That's what I'm.
Yeah,
saying.
I mean, if I'm a millionaire and then my gimmick is I go to every wrestling show, like some people out there, it's different. But for me, who kind of picks and chooses which wrestling shows to go to,
this one be the one. This one be the one I'm driving. Yeah. How many hours is it, Columbus?
About 7.
I was gonna say 6-7 hours. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not. I mean, if this was a premier card, that's something to be debated. But looking at the card, I'm comfortable just watching it on my TV.
Yeah. I've been to Columbus, though, a few times. It is a nice place. Obviously.
Ohio's a very nice place. The state of Ohio is a nice place.
Cleveland, they got one of the better zoos. Columbus Zoo is one of the best zoos out there. Columbus, home of a person who we talked about a little bit earlier and a person who's fighting for the championship. We'll start there, I guess. Alexa Bliss, hometown girl.
She'll get a nice pop.
Taking on Charlotte Flair. Charlotte Flair losing her championship to Alexa Bliss this week. What do you think?
No, I think Alexa Bliss is going to take the L. I think Charlotte's going to retain and keep it going.
The match I thought we should have saw originally, but as the champion being Bianca Belair and not Becky Lynch, the rematch of the SummerSlam shenanigans happens at Extreme Rules. Becky Lynch, Bianca Belair. I think we're all in agreement that Becky is probably going to defend the belt.
Yeah, Becky's not.
I think it should have just been Bianca and Becky in a match at Extreme Rules to begin with, and then Becky could have won the belt for the first time since her return at Extreme Rules instead of having the rematch. As we move on to the triple threat match for the U.S. belt, Damian Priest, Jeff Hardy, and Sheamus. I think this could go any way. I mean,
I don't think it goes any way. I think it stays with Priest. That's to me. I don't think Priest is losing that belt.
I think Jeff Hardy could potentially lead with the belt, especially with Sheamus.
Well, what
has
he been doing? Jeff Hardy's been doing what lately?
I mean, they gave him back his old music. They've been kind of giving him a little bit of a good rub.
Yeah, but I don't think it's enough rub to just throw the belt on him.
Now, if you notice the theme here, it took us all until this week before we got an Extreme Rules match, and we'll get to that one Extreme Rules match in a minute. But the tag team titles are on the line when the Usos face the Street Profits. I imagine the Usos are retaining their belt. The Bloodline, they got to keep all the championship together. Yeah, that's kind of thing going on.
Yeah, that's their gimmick. So you got to keep the belts on the Usos. Yeah, that right there could be one of the better matches on the cards. I'm just saying, I really enjoy the Usos, and I really enjoy what Dawkins and Ford do. They're fantastic.
I see Liv Morgan and Carmella. I imagine. I mean, if that's not a pre-show match, if it's a regular match, then
that's pre-show. If it's any,
I don't know who's going to win. I don't care who's going to win.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
I mean, I like Liv Morgan. It'd be great to see her maybe in the women's title picture going forward, but from this perspective,
WWE's dropped the ball on Liv, so unfortunately, they'll probably give it to Carmella.
The main event: Roman Reigns against Finn Balor for the Universal.
Hold on. The Demon, Finn Balor. Let's correct that. And the Demon, I don't think he's ever lost in WWE, if I'm not mistaken.
I think you might be right. Yeah.
So does he take his first L in WWE as the Demon? I think he does.
I mean, obviously, which is stupid on their part. I don't know why they did it, but WWE already announced that Brock Lesnar is scheduled to face Roman Reigns for the championship at Crown Jewel, October the 21st.
So it's already tipping their hand.
Yeah, I think that's fine. You don't have to announce it on Monday Night Raw or SmackDown, but at least wait until this pay-per-view had concluded before you announce that. I don't know the reason why they announce things when they do. It's so weird because when we were kids, everything was announced on television because there was only television. Now it's so weird to just have things randomly come out all hours of the day. You never know when it's coming, so it's so strange to me that happens.
Why don't we wait till after the pay-per-view? So at least gives us the fans a little bit of doubt. Like, okay, maybe Balor can win, but when you book it the way you book it ahead of time, that already tips the hand of okay, we already know who's winning that match.
Isn't it so strange though? I mean, you just think about being a kid when growing up. You had to wait until wrestling happened for wrestling to happen. When Raw wasn't going on and SmackDown wasn't going on, nothing was happening.
No, you had to wait for each show to air, and you had to watch those moments. And let's be honest, we're spoiled now in 2021 versus 1998, where we had to sit through all the commercials.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's just so strange nowadays that, pay-per-view matches are announced at all hours of the day. At any time, even we saw the championship on Raw a couple weeks ago announced prior to the show. We would have never known that before. No. I guess we could have went to WWE.com, but even before that, going before WWE.com
Or didn't you call the 1-900 number? Did you do that?
Yeah, I mean, that was to find out about stuff like the plane ride from hell, and that still obviously didn't give us the full story. They probably glamorized that so that we would call it again in the future to get more information.
Yeah, that's how they get people to keep reeling them in. That's it.
So for Brandon, I'm Jared. We'll talk Extreme Rules next week and so much more as another edition of the Heel to the Face podcast.